Good morning, guys, and welcome back. Guess what I learned how to do? Make a video in the corner of a screen recording. So that's what we're going to use today to give you some directions for what I expect. Yesterday, you all read the article about students who fought for free speech, and I wanted you guys to start to make the connection between the Tinker case and why it still matters today. And one of the things that Mary Beth Tinker said in the video, or in the article, excuse me, is that so many young people through history have been woke. Woke is a word used today, I hope you've heard it, to describe people that are awake, woke, to injustices going on around the world. And it's a slang term used, and maybe not so much relatively recently, but I've heard many a times to describe young people who are aware of their surroundings and aware of their rights. And Mary Beth Tinker, no doubt, was woke. But she was also inspired by many other people before her who were maybe even more woke than her. And so that's what we're going to focus on today, this aspect of being woke. Here's our agenda. Number 1, you're going to watch this video. You're already doing that. Awesome. Number 2, you're going to find an example of youth activism that interests you. And then you're going to finally create a youth activism collage. And I'll explain what that is because there's a lot of sort of ways you could do that. This is one that interests me that I'm going to talk about in a moment. It's called the Children's March, and it happened in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. Your collage, though, when all said and done, should be a compilation sort of advertising your demonstration, your youth activist moment. And there's a lot of ways that this can go. So I'm going to try to give you an example in today's sort of video as well. So please listen to the whole thing. I promise it's worthwhile. Okay. There are many examples of student activism. The article cited a few. The March for Our Lives is probably the one that's most recent and I think is maybe one of the most impressive movements that was 100% organized by young people, during which hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of young people not only participated in the March for Our Lives in 2017, but also organized walkouts in their schools, Wilmette Junior High being one of them. Another example are the sit-ins that happened during the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. This was also mentioned in the article. I wanted to show you guys this picture. This was in Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. These are civil rights activists organized by a group called SNCC. And that group helped to organize both white and African American students who participated in these nonviolent acts called sit-ins. Maybe you've heard of these before. But if you look closely at this picture, you'll see what these horrible people are doing as African American women are trying to sit at a counter that is for whites only. And they wanted it to be photographed, they wanted it to be advertised, and they wanted to use their moment of activism, their moment of being woke, to spread the word of injustice. And they couldn't just go out there and say that injustice happened, they wanted to show you. And that's really the power of this type of activism, this nonviolent activism. You'll see that over their heads, I think the caption says, sugar, ketchup, mustard, milkshakes at one point were poured on people's heads. And they're not moving. They're not doing anything. That is just beyond impressive and acting with integrity. I really think that's important here. Okay. I digress. My probably most inspirational example has to be the Children's March. A student named Charles Avery, a high school student, organized 800 fellow students in Birmingham, Alabama, a city that sort of became the center of the civil rights movement during the 1960s. And they marched a 10-mile walk to protest the injustice of segregation. And at the time, this was incredibly interesting and it caught the news, especially the media's eye, because it was kids. It wasn't just young people. It wasn't college students even. It was literal children marching through the street, being met by police officers, sometimes violently with things like dogs and hoses, and being told that their voice didn't matter. Awful moment in history, but probably one of the most pivotal moments in history that really changed the path of where the civil rights movement went. And it was kids. It was children, younger than you are right now. Okay, another one here, college students protesting for democracy in Tiananmen Square. This was incredibly important. It was all about freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Unfortunately, it was met with quite a bit of violence in Tiananmen Square, if you've heard the story of the Tank Man. If not, you should go Google it. And then last but not least, Black Lives Matter is another example. By and large, Black Lives Matter may now be operated by adults. professionals, even non-government organizations, NGOs. However, don't forget that that entire organization was started by young people, by students. And since then has become one of the most formidable voices about injustice in his country. It inspired Colin Kaepernick's protest to take a knee, all that jazz. There are so many examples. I'm giving examples largely from the United States here, but when I say it's everywhere, it's everywhere. And young people really stand at the foot of injustice so often, and their voices matter. Someone yesterday in the discussion post said that, no, these rights don't apply to us because we're not 18 years old yet. That is not true. In fact, some of the most impressive moments in history have definitely been initiated by young people. So that's the goal of today, to get some sort of inspiration going for you. This is your turn. I want you to learn about youth activism today. And I want you to remember Mary Beth Tinker as we do that. You're going to create a collage to essentially advertise the importance of youth activism, why this matters, right? Your collage, and that's a loose term here, should include the following. What happened? Why were they protesting? And why does it matter today? Lots of pictures, visuals, etc. Lots of freedom here. You can use whatever you want. You can use Piclage, you can use paper. Do you guys even remember paper? Do you have paper? I don't know. I kind of forget about paper sometimes these days. You can use Google Slides, which is what I used. Whatever you're most comfortable with, you're going to make a collage. That's my collage hands. Okay. This is mine. I use Tinker because I didn't want to give away too much about the other ones because I want you to be able to use whatever examples you can find. And I'm going to put Tinker on the do not do Tinker list. So here's Tinker. I even put a black band across the center, sort of like the black armbands that the students wore. There's a few pictures in here that I sort of mashed around with. Here's what happened. Here's why they were protesting. Here are some other pictures, including things like draft cards and protests, etc. And then finally, why does it matter today? I have actually uploaded this template to the folder for today so that you can use it. Actually, I'm a little ahead of myself, but that's coming up next. You're going to research examples of youth activism. That's step one. Number two, you're going to create your collage. So here's your folder for today, right? After you watch the video. You're going to click on this folder, Examples of Student Activism Articles. There's 3 I just posted on there with some lists. Lots of options. You can also just go Google on your own examples of youth activism in history. Doesn't have to be the United States. It could be the whole world. It's up to you. The second and third resources that are here are the template, which you're going to make a copy of in Google Slides. If you want to use that, sure. If not, use whatever you'd like. And then finally down here, this is my example, the one I just showed you, if you really want to see how it was formatted and what I included. When you're done, you're going to submit it. This is meant to be a one-day activity because it's really just an introduction to youth activism. Do not spend over like 20 minutes on this unless you really want to get creative and just sort of want to put your energy there today. It really is just a chance for you to explore something new that directly connects to what Tinker did, because Tinker was not the first and she's not the last. Okay, so with that, you're set for today. If you have any questions, please email me. Starting tomorrow, we are starting our brand new project, so really important that tomorrow you join our live Zoom session so I can help you. It's optional, obviously. I can't force you to join those, but it would be really helpful tomorrow as we start our project. Okay, I'm on a tangent. Go and get started on learning all about youth activism.